On this episode of Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered, we talk about the clear cooperation policy. We talk about dual agency, office exclusives, and a leadership gap in residential real estate. It's going to be an incredible show. You talk about it privately. We talk about it publicly. This is the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. Welcome again to the Real Estate Insiders Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, James Dwiggins, along with my co-host, Keith Robinson, aka Crazy Uncle Keith.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about Jessica Edgerton, the Chief Legal Officer for leading real estate companies of the world.
She is awesome. Don't hold it against her, even if she is an attorney. She's great. We had a thoughtful debate on a whole bunch of different topics. We talked about clear cooperation. We talked about office exclusives. We got in a really robust debate around dual agency.
Yes, we did.
And then the leadership. Yes, we did. And the leadership gap in the industry. A great thought exercise conversation that I think everyone should listen to.
It's gonna be a great show. Tune in. Jessica, welcome to the show. We are super excited to have you here. We have a lot to talk about today, and there's no drama in residential real estate right now. So
zero.
We were
not
struggling.
Really anything going on.
For all the listeners and viewers, we were struggling with topics to talk about today and have opinions on it. So
knitting, crochet.
Knitting, crochet, yes.
Yeah.
Underwater basket weaving. That was another one.
Hot paint colors for 2024.
So, Jessica, start us out. Tell us a little bit about who you work for, your background, and how you got into the position you are today.
Fantastic. So I'm Chief Legal Officer and EVP of Industry and Learning for leading real estate companies of the world. For those who don't know who Leading RE is, we are a global network of independent brokerages. We represent about 70 plus member brokers around the world, all of the top independent companies in the world and in their local marketplaces. And we have an umbrella of about 130,000 agents.
Wow.
We were born from a broker-to-broker referral network, which is still one of our core offerings, but we are also now, we've expanded to a pretty broad suite of ancillary services as well, including learning, training, marketing, luxury, the list goes on. And we hold some of the coolest and most fun events in the industry.
Yeah, didn't you guys just have like an event in Paris or something? Did I or
Dubai?
Dubai. Oh, sorry, my bad.
No, Paris is so 2022.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
James, I'm gonna submit my travel request for 2020. Oh.
Denied.
Right. Wow.
That is awesome, by the way. And you were just recently promoted, I believe, to Chief Legal Officer. So congratulations on that. Super excited for you. Well, being that you are a lawyer, we're going to talk about a lot of lawyer stuff today. And I'm sure you have zero opinions on any of it.
I have no opinions on anything. I'm going to be a great podcast.
Somehow I think you're lying.
Yeah. Well, we actually like people to be, as Keith and I, for the viewers and listeners, we always tell our guests that our goal is to push you right up to the point of getting fired, and then we pull you back 10%.
Right.
That's
right.
kind
Paul,
of
are you listening?
Yeah, exactly. All right. So before we dive into all of our main questions, we always like to ask our guests 3 questions so they get to know you a little bit. And these are rapid fire, so we'll do them fast. Okay. I'll start with the first. If you were a superhero, who would it be and why?
The Incredible Hulk, obviously, because there would be very little costume change required.
Oh my God. By the way,
also,
do you know,
as all good lawyers can do, there can be some real rapid turns of whatever you're least expecting.
Yeah, that's my secret. I'm always angry. Is that basically what you're saying? Like, yeah,
totally. I have horrible disposition.
Do you see the thing in the top right-hand corner of Keith, above Keith's shoulder?
Yeah.
So you understand why he was excited?
Oh!
You just noticed it?
Mhm.
Yes!
Right.
All right.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm officially no longer part of this podcast. This is now
nice
you
to
and
see
Keith.
you, James.
See you guys.
I'll
I'm
take
out.
number 2.
The Hulk's the best,
He
man.
is the
And the
best.
wardrobe, I mean, come on.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. Okay. Question number 2, but that's the best answer we've ever had to superhero. Favorite book or podcast this year and why?
Well, this podcast, obviously.
I mean, duh. Right?
I mean, come on. You guys,
Duh.
by the way, I mean, you guys have just recently launched and you are
We're shooting for the top 100 podcasts on Apple right now, and we're a little proud of it.
I'm a subscriber. No, you guys are amazing, truly. In terms of books, I am really enjoying *Sapiens: A Brief History of Mankind* right now. It is fantastic. And it really is kind of an interesting narrative given everything that's happening in our industry right now.
Sure.
It's about how communication and narrative, and in some cases, false narratives can proliferate and can really sort of have changed the landscape. It's why we won over the Neanderthals.
Yeah, it's basically why humans are stupid.
It's kind of why, and why we are not long for this world. It's kind of a devastating portrait of what we're all in for from a species perspective.
We're bad decision makers, basically. Yeah. But it's a great book. That's a good
and
one.
we believe really weird stuff. So.
We do.
That is
social media.
Like social media has nothing to do with that, by the way.
No.
If you could have lunch with one person, current or historical, who would it be and why?
So I actually would probably, this is sentimental.
Oh, great.
But it's something that I would love to go back and sit back down with my grandfather, who I never got to ask. He was a fascinating man. He was a Quaker. He was during World War II, he actually was part of a peaceful resistance. He went out and saved dozens of children from Nazi Germany. And because he passed away and actually suffered from Alzheimer's towards the end, I never got the full narrative from him and the full story from him. So it's one of my greatest regrets, but has also taught me now to really ensure that I am collecting the narratives and the stories from those who I am lucky enough to still have in my life. So my grandfather.
That was a really good answer, by the way. And I didn't relate to you on the first two, but I did on this last one because my grandfather was one of my mentors.
Wow.
And that's a different story at a different time, but that was awesome. So everybody gets to know you a little bit. All right. So we do have to segue. Let's go the opposite direction. And we have a series of questions, and obviously there's a lot going on in our business right now. I feel like, I've been in this my whole life. So I'm third generation, and I feel like this is definitely the most interesting and being politically correct time for our industry between complicated, etc.
I like interesting because there is an ancient Chinese curse. If you want to really curse someone, you say, "May you live in interesting times."
I'm gonna see. By the way, we have this thing Keith and I do. Keith inserts words into something during the day, like some word that nobody's ever heard before, and sees if anybody picks up on it. He does it every day. It's hilarious. So.
Do you make them up sometimes, or are these actually pulled?
No, usually I'll ask someone, give me a word to sneak in, and then they'll pick some obscure word, and I've got to try to work it out.
He has to figure out how to put it into a sentence during the day. So we're very strange. Anyways, all right. So let's start with this. Everybody knows about the Morel and Burnett. And
not everyone, unfortunately.
Okay,
everyone that listens to this
podcast will know about it. We don't want to talk about that right now because everybody kind of has updates on that. What I want to just address somewhat quickly is just some of the other cases that people aren't aware of. Not to add more to it, but I think they're important. And I think this first one ties into a subject that we'll go deep on. But there's the TAN PLS cases that have been happening, and just give the listeners, viewers, just a very brief, just quick synopsis of what those cases are, because I think it fits into the clear cooperation policy, which I know we're going to discuss.
Yeah, sure. So very, very briefly, these are two cases that have been out there for a while now. The focus has obviously been on Merle and Burnett and all of the rest of the big cases that are making the headlines right now. But TAN and PLS were both cases out on the West Coast. With corporate plaintiffs claiming that who had business models essentially allowing for off MLS listings and public-facing platforms that would allow their agents and participants to put out non-MLS listings into the ecosystem.
And it was like with TAN, like you had to be at a certain production level to be part of it, and like
which is interesting because of some of the judges' claims that they were in fact participating in their business model was anti-competitive.
Sure, yeah.
But not to go down that rabbit hole. Both of these cases claimed that NAR's clear cooperation policy, which was implemented in 2019, or came down November 2019, implemented in 2020, basically killed their business model.
Right.
And that this amounted to antitrust and a group boycott against their business models. The cases were dismissed at the lower level. Both have now been revived and remanded for further trial. The interesting thing here is, I mean, clear cooperation has been a beleaguered policy for years now. Lots of problems there. Whatever happens at the trial level, and given the tenor of what's been happening across the ecosystem in terms of antitrust, I do not hold much hope for the defendants in this case. NAR, I am a little concerned, or I not necessarily concerned. Clear cooperation, I do feel is problematic. I don't know that the defendants have a very good chance.
Isn't it really anything that looks like collusion or even like rhymes with collusion that it's probably going to get in trouble or pulled away or redacted or reduced?
I mean, these are civil cases, right? The Department of Justice has submitted amicus briefs here. So I've made the analogy in the past that the Department of Justice in all of these civil cases, TAN and PLS, which focus on clear cooperation, and the Merle Sitzer, et cetera, have sort of, they occasionally have been, they've hiding in the bushes. They're clearly looking at what's happening. They will occasionally pop out, file an amicus brief, et cetera, and then slip back into the bushes. I don't think that that's what we are going to be seeing going forward. I think we are going to be seeing a very strong presence. I mean, we just saw it with the PIN case. They're making noise, sustained noise now, and I think that we're going to continue to see.
All right, so let me unpack this just a quick second. So let's go back. Clear cooperation policy was enacted because it's the pod that I'm on, so I get to say what I want.
I have a feeling you're not about to say because of fair housing.
No, I'm actually going to say because of greed, and I'm going to go deeper. I remember down here in the Bay Area, MLS listings at one point before CCP had 30% of the listings were off market. And it was a huge problem because I am firmly in the camp. The intended outcome of CCP, what it is trying to do, is not wrong. I'm not going to say that it was implemented correctly and is not being enforced correctly. Right. I think the intent is correct in that sellers are being told directly, we can do this off market, blah, 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 blah. And the reality is
and it will benefit you off market, right?
It,
not only can we, but you will see benefits. And you're not Angelina Jolie going through it.
Right. And everyone's like, oh, I have clients that, want to be that way. I'm like, well, first of all, none of you represent Angelina Jolie. So just stop. Secondly, that's like 1/100th of 1% of the clients that do that. People, I think, and I've talked to consumers, they're getting this message from people that this is a better way to go when proven statistically, and I forget the exact number, but if you list it in the MLS, your house sells for some percentage higher.
Yep.
Period. Factual information. So NAR is not wrong in trying to do this. I think the intent is correct. I look at it like when you look at all the decisions that have been made, CCP was sort of the icing on the cake for this conspiracy that all these other civil cases are using. So I have to ask you this question because this is completely off script now. Like, where is, if the DOJ and the FTC, which we should talk about as well, their intent is wanting consumers to actually be benefited. They don't want things to harm consumers. How is CCP harming consumers?
So,
I mean, it's a good question.
It is a good question. I think that when it comes to the CCP, the harm is, first of all, there's consumers and then there's our brokers. So let me start.
Sure.
Let me start with some of our brokers. As you know, Leading RE represents very large brokers all the way down to small to mid-sized. One of the initial issues that I have with Clear Cooperation is that it didn't do what it was supposed to do, which was create more robust data in the MLS and get everybody to actually put their listings into the MLS.
Okay.
And the reason for that is there is an office exclusive carve out.
Okay.
The office exclusive carve out is an extremely powerful tool for big companies.
Right.
And I won't use any names here, but there was one in particular that, brilliant or evil or whatever you want to call it, following Clear Cooperation, this is a big national brand, put on their public facing website, privacy is the new luxury.
Yeah.
And so they were feeding in, and so buyers who wanted to get the full scope of the picture of what's available on the market would then need to contact a buyer's agent here. The
Right.
sellers were being told that putting their listing off MLS was a sign of luxury and status.
Right. They're being told. They're being directed this way out of greed.
Out of sure, we can.
You don't
call
have to
it
agree with my
greed.
word.
Yeah,
I'm just going to call it.
you're gonna make more money, right?
Right.
You've got your own little
Right.
fiefdom over there.
Right.
And they're able to do that because they are a big brand. So our local boutique brands who are small to mid-sized, they can't recruit agents against that. They can't recruit buyers and sellers against that. And it is creating a real unfair advantage that didn't ever need to be.
So, but what about in the situations where there is, and you don't have to just be Angelina Jolie going through a divorce. I mean, that's an extreme example,
Sure.
right? But you might
moving
just
to a
be
new
someone. You might just be someone who doesn't want their stuff on the street.
Okay,
So how do you balance
But I think
those
that
two?
somebody who doesn't want their stuff on the street has not been appropriately educated by their agent about how much more. I don't want my stuff on the street versus I want whatever the percentage is, 15,000 more from selling my home.
Right.
I mean,
there are people who might pick that, right?
Sure.
And don't we
for
need
danger, like they're being stalked or they're switching jobs and they don't want their
boss to know? Or
there
whatever.
are ways, in my mind, in my opinion, and because we all know how MLSs work, for that data to be available in the MLS to create a robust.
Without public viewability.
Without publishing it.
Right.
You don't have to push it.
So
to
it's in the
Zillow.
MLS. People can see it. The property's there. Other people can bring buyers to it, but it's not necessarily. I'm making this up. It's not on Zillow or somebody else. It's not
Exactly.
public, right?
So I don't know that now. The original intent, and I hear you on the greed factor, but another narrative put out by NAR when Clear Cooperation dropped was there are fair housing issues here. There is a real need to ensure that everybody has access to the same inventory, especially in a market right now where there's no inventory, right? And certain consumers aren't going to be able to access all of the data, fair housing, et cetera. I think that's real, but Clear Cooperation, I candidly, I don't think that it solved that problem. And I think the office exclusive factor.
Because of the office exclusive carve out, basically.
It's a big part of it.
Well, you're seeing that with EXP now.
Yeah.
They're literally exploiting that too with their new product. It's that big brokerages are finding ways to essentially I'm going to make this statement. Publicly traded big brokerages are finding ways to prop up stock price. And one of the ways to do that is to, gather a disproportionate share of the market. And what's funny is I've been around this business long enough. I sound old, but I actually have been around this business long enough to remember the MLS book. Both my parents would go get it once a month. I remember they'd go to something called Multiple and they would sit down and get the new book before there was the internet. Like literally, I remember these days. And we're talking about taking things back to the way it was, which is you had to figure out and call every freaking company to figure out what properties are for sale.
That's how it's done in Europe. I mean, if you want to buy a second home in Portugal, guess what you do? You walk into a brokerage, say, show me what you got. And then you walk down the street and say it again. And then you walk down the street again and say it again. Yeah. It is, which is, I mean, we're referring back to Merle and Sitzer and all the rest of it. But these, plaintiffs experts who are saying, well, look at Europe. Well, look at all,
it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing.
Right.
And it doesn't
not
work.
Inefficient. Right. It's not an
Our
efficient
system
market.
works. They're blowing something up that is so pro-consumer.
Yeah.
What about coming soon? Since that's something that is, I'd say not often, but done from time to time in the industry. Should there be a space for something to be pre-marketed before it officially goes to market?
I think so. I mean, I think that less rules rather than more in that capacity. Coming soon has its place. It can get abused, right? And there needs to, be some market restraints and parameters around that. But I absolutely think there's a place for coming soon. Yeah.
Where do you think it goes? You said the DOJ steps out. You think the DOJ is going to come in and end it? Or the FTC? Because
Well,
everybody is not looking at the fact the FTC
nobody's
has
looking
complete
at the
authority.
FTC.
Right. Yeah.
Biden's executive order opened up a whole other can of worms.
By the way, that's not a political statement for listeners and viewers.
It's not a political statement.
The Biden administration gave an executive order in 2021, July of 2021, that gave the FTC commissioner complete authority to rewrite any rules that it classifies under. I believe tying is the word they're using.
Which
Jessica,
doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make
it's
sense,
not really tying, but sure. But that was a specific, it's very clear. That's clear cooperation. That is, offers of compensation. It's the whole shebang. So the federal government right now is absolutely, I think, going to be, you said, how does this end? I think it ends with the feds. I think that ultimately, no matter what happens with the cases here, I think we are going to ultimately see.
I have been saying this from the rooftops, and everyone's ignoring it, going like, "Oh, it's just going to be optional." I'm like, "You don't get it. Like, there's so much change coming." Now, to be clear, again, non-political statement, more factual.
Yeah.
Right now, if the current administration's in play, you can continue to expect that. If there is a potential change in administration, not saying this would happen, but then it becomes an opportunity for a new administration to change rules if they so choose. Is that a fair statement?
I think so. And again, I don't want to get political.
Not either.
But I think we all understand what the current administration's agenda is, and it's very much in line with the plaintiffs.
Yes. All right. So let's go one more here that I think is an interesting one. And by the way, no one's talking about it. We haven't even talked about it because it's just, it was there and it was dismissed and it's back. So the leader case, which is now back. Not to scare everybody here, but like sort of
hanging around the edges.
Sure.
I actually, if we're going to say it's back like a zombie. It's still dead, but it's walking around.
Okay. So give people some background on that, because there's a little bit of a different take than the Morel and Sitzer.
So, and this is coming from, I checked the federal website today that tracks all federal cases. Leader's not even on there right now. So something really funky. It might've gone just from zombie to I don't know, ghost, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's the situation. There is, in front of Judge Wood, that is the same federal judge, notoriously slow, out of the Seventh Circuit, who is overseeing the Murrell case, which is very much watching what's happening right now with Sitzer Burnett.
Of course.
It's all, she's not doing anything that isn't in the shadow of what's happening out of Missouri. But she had in front of her a case, Leader, and still does, that was some creative lawyers saying, "Oh, look at all of this, this activity around antitrust and sellers." As we all know, Sitzer, Burnett,
MLS
Pin, all of those cases are sellers as the plaintiffs. The class action is sellers.
Yeah.
Some creative lawyers, because we're all so creative when it comes to possibly lining our pockets, said, "Hey, what about the buyers? Nobody's talking about the buyers. This is injuring the buyers as well. Let's get another class action lawsuit and do the buyers." Well, of course, poor Judge Wood, I wouldn't want to be here, was like, "What? Nah, my life already is hell. Don't do this to me." She's dealing with Murrell. This was filed under federal antitrust law. She said, "No, guys, absolutely not. There is no standing under federal law for indirectly injured plaintiffs. And in this case, you are an indirect party. The correct lawsuit is Murrell, and all of the rest of the sellers are the directly injured parties. You guys are indirect. Federal law doesn't allow for that. Get out." Yeah,
I want to simplify this, because the seller is the one paying the compensation, the commission. I'm with you. I'm just following the comments you say.
This is the logic.
The buyer, in other words, the buyer isn't the one paying the compensation. You're not harmed.
Supposedly.
Suppose
Yes.
okay, but now
Theoretically.
so theoretically, but
Yeah.
all right. So now let's play this for a second. What if because a lot of people talk about the fact that the buyer is the one that pays the compensation when they buy the house. So two questions in my brain's thinking here, but like what if that was the actual defense? Meaning like what if we said it was the buyer that was paying? I'm just playing hypothetical for lawyer games here. Like wouldn't that
in Sitzer, Burnett, and all the
Yeah.
rest of it?
Yeah. You know where I'm going here?
Yeah, I see where you're going.
I'm not saying that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that. Like,
I mean,
What?
it's an interesting defense. And if
But-
we're going to get into sort of the fundamentals here, I don't think it matters what the defense is, because I think that the train is on the tracks coming
Right.
up, and
Yeah.
no matter what kind of good defense there is,
no, we
in
know
my
that.
personal opinion, we have I haven't even finished with Leader yet. We're going all over the place.
I know.
But we've got a jury trial coming up. Jury's like the little guy.
Yeah.
We
Mhm.
have a
We've said this.
3-year history
We've
of
been clear about the fact these cases aren't going to go well. So like, yeah.
anyway, but back to Leader, just to sort of wrap that up, because it is something to be keeping our eye on. It could pop back up. There is a motion to dismiss on the table. There was a status call on the 21st on this, but there has been an amended complaint filed. Okay, that basically says the plaintiffs are saying, fine, you're right, Judge Wood, our bad. Under federal law, there is no indirect plaintiffs allowed. But guess what? Under 2/3 of state federal law or state antitrust law, there is. And so there has been a new amended complaint with a tie-in to state antitrust law, still with a federal hook, so it can be under federal law, that allows for indirect standing. And that is what is the potential zombie element here, because it's a decent argument, right?
Yeah.
So knowing Judge Wood, very, very possibly nothing is going to happen until after not only we have a full resolution out of Missouri, but also whatever happens. I think all of the judges at play here understand that we have a federal component or a federal government component that's going to be at play. I don't think Judge Wood is going to do much, if anything, until we have some decisions.
Is it possible that the first set of lawsuits end up cleaning up whatever would be the outcome of these second set of lawsuits?
What do you mean by first and second?
Meaning if these Morel and Sitzer, well, let's just hypothetically say these don't go well because we all think they won't.
Right.
You can't have it both ways. It's one way or the other. Like if sellers are harmed, buyers can't be harmed too. Like, I mean, you can't have it both ways, or can you?
I think they could have it both ways, possibly. I mean, I think that might stay alive for a little while. So
I'm going to change our logo from coffee to like a martini glass. So unfiltered is like unshaken or something, Real Estate Insiders Unshaken or,
extra dirty.
Yeah. Or extra dirty. All right.
Real Estate Insiders Extra Dirty.
That's
That's our new slogan. I mean, I'm down, but
I don't know. I'm getting red in the face. Let's keep going.
We might end up with a different audience.
All right. So we have a few more questions we want to get. So what should brokers and agents be doing? So you're obviously in charge of, education and things as well at leading REs. So what are you having your constituency doing, and how are you preparing them for the next 12 to 18 months?
So a lot of it comes down, a lot of what's been already talked about, right? The obvious stuff is ensure that your buyer agents are using buyer representation agreements, but don't just ensure that they're using them, teach them how to use it. Buyer agents are extremely uncomfortable with it. Teach them how to have that conversation, teach them the value, teach them that it is of value to them and their consumers to use these things. So that's number one. Number two, train your buyer agents to basically approach potential consumers the way listing agents approach a listing a listing engagement, right? Talk about
buyer
your value
presentation.
So all of that we know. We've talked about that stuff. I think what isn't getting talked about right now is, and this is still in the educational tranche, there's other stuff that I think the industry needs to be doing, especially when it comes to, what happens if all of this comes to be. We can talk about that in a minute in terms of what this could possibly do to buyers and consumers, especially first time VA. There is a fair housing element here as well, with folks not being able to afford representation and what that looks like. But in terms of just pure training, I think something that is not being talked enough about is we need to start also talking to our listing agents about the dual representation issues that are going to come up here. Because if we are dealing with an ecosystem where a lot of buyers are out there flailing around like zombies, unrepresented, not knowing what the heck is going on, not knowing how to deal with it. If those listing agents want to close the deal, there are going to be some fuzzy lines there for them to try to walk these folks through things. And
do you think this could turn into an increase in dual agency, or do you think dual agency is going to go away?
I think there is a danger that they're not necessarily. Yes, I do think so. And I think that's a huge problem because I don't like dual agency.
Amen.
It's
to be clear for listeners and viewers, we're talking about the same agent representing both sides of the deal, not the brokerage.
Right. Absolutely.
Because by the way, agency is subjective by state. I've learned that this whole country is a disaster on how they operate.
Yeah, we've got so many styles and flavors and fashions.
Florida, you guys are in trouble with transaction brokers.
Brokers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But my concern is not just, actual dual agency happening in the whatever 40, 39, what is 9?
It's 9 states it's banned.
9 states that it's banned. So all of those other states, you can do it, fine, not fine, but sure, be clear, understand what that means. But I think we're going to be dealing with, and this is my phrase, I'm just making it up, but de facto dual agency situations where they're not really representing, but they are. They're going to get sued. Here's our next round of class action lawsuits just waiting to happen. 100%.
By the way, true fact, talk to our the largest insurance carrier for E&O coverage for our firm. She said 85% of all claims are related around dual agency.
Yes. Sorry, I'm getting shrieky. But
that was my dog just freaked out.
Sorry, our listeners. I'm so sorry I got so shrill, but I'm very passionate about it.
I actually agree with you both, but it's a boring pod if we all just agree, right? So
let's fight.
I mean, just a little bit. Just a little. What about new homes, for example? Basically, every one of those is dual agency. Are you fine with it in those instances? Like, I mean, there are places where dual agency happens and the consumer's actually okay with it and probably not damaged, right?
I think that there are ways to make it not be dual agency, and I think we need to look at that. I'm an attorney,
so how would a builder
if I were ever to represent two people on opposite sides of the table, I would be disbarred.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
I mean, with new construction, which hopefully we will be seeing more of, and new homes.
He's going to press you on this, by the way. You're going to have to answer.
Yeah, I just mean we can't increase the cost of new homes by another 1.5 because we have to pay a buyer's side, right? They can't hire their own buyer's agents and their own seller's agents and have them basically smash their heads together in new home developments and increase the costs. So, how would we do that?
You're putting me on the spot to come up with a whole new business model.
You're right. But, it's not fair. I guess, I'm with you all that I agree. I guess maybe it's just the the libertarian roots that I have, right? I hate absolutes. Absolutes drive me crazy because there are edge use cases that happen all the time where if a human being wants efficiency and they're okay, maybe they inherited a property and all they want to do is make it go away and get the lump sum of cash because they're launching a new business and they need the $500,000 in their bank account, right? And if they just want efficiencies and not on the market and sell it this weekend, and I'm fine if you're a dual agent, people should be allowed to make a non-optimal financial decision if it's what they really want to do. And big point to which I think we all agree, they also understand the ramifications of that decision.
And I think that's a big part of it. I mean, just to be the peacekeeper here, sure, maybe there are places where dual agency can work. But I think that it is an extremely dangerous proposition to put dual agency into play, especially when it comes to first-time home buyers, especially in environments like like the one that we're dealing with now,
Totally.
where there's a lot of desperation, there is a lot of confusion. And I think that if we have situations where dual agency is the norm,
It's prevalent.
we are going to put consumers at an extreme disadvantage.
100%.
And
Yeah.
agents will get sued by disappointed consumers and confused consumers.
Can I add
to James's earlier point? I mean, whether or not we want to say that clear cooperation was born from greed or I mean, we are a commercial industry, right? We are all out to make money. There is no shame in that. And if you have dual agency as the norm and you have everybody out there just pro dual agency and let's do this, the consumers will lose.
Yeah,
and
I
the
agree.
consumers will sue.
And for the record, I'm steel manning the other side of a debate that I don't believe. I represented buyers and sellers. I never once did dual agency. I would specifically tell my clients, even if I had a listing and one of the buyers that I was repping wanted to write on it, I referred them to another agent just for that transaction. Yeah. Personally, I do think it is far too prevalent. I just also think there are use cases in which it makes sense, so long as the human being,
Jolie.
yes, or someone just wants speed, right? You can sacrifice optimization of cash for speed if you're selling your home.
Sure.
So one, I'll seal this up because I think it's a great comment, Keith, and I don't disagree with you. By the way, there is an absolute. I thought many of them while you said that. Number one, you're never handling anything HR related in our company, to be clear.
Facts.
Like that is an absolute, like never going to happen.
No, I agree.
Beyond that, I think there's going to be. I had this debate the other day, not debate. I was talking with somebody because they were looking for an update on the lawsuits and how I thought some of these things would play out. And one of the comments was that buyer representation is going to go away. I'm like, no, that's completely the opposite of everything. Everyone needs to calm the F down for a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
There's going to be changes. They go, well, it's going to become more of a flat fee or hourly or menu. I said, well, first of all, it won't be hourly unless all of you want to hire people, because our IRS carve out that we have for the independent contractor status specifically states in that rule, you can't charge hourly. So to be clear, not going to happen unless you guys want to make everybody employees. Number two, Foxtons, Purple Bricks, Rex. I can go down an entire list of companies that came into this market in the US with a flat fee program and all filed bankruptcy. They all filed bankruptcy. I'm not saying that this won't work. I'm saying that it has not been proven out in this industry. Consumers, for whatever reason, they perceive discount fees as discount services. And so they therefore want to go to full service. And you can see the swing depending upon the market. My comment, though, and we'll move on to this last question, is I do think, Keith, to your point, there needs to be opportunity, but a builder could refer it out, and there could be agents that do basic services, menu of services. We will help write your contract. We will do it for this fee specifically. It's not then, the standard quote unquote compensation that somebody might charge.
Which, as much as you hate Florida, kind of sounds a little bit
Florida-ish.
Right?
Florida-ish.
Yeah.
Look, my Don Quixote-esque windmill tilting is around affordability, because I think that's the biggest threat to our industry and to home ownership. And so whenever I think about it through that lens, yes, we could do a different pod and probably spend 30 minutes and come up with 2 or 3 or even 4 really solid, easy business models for how new home sales could do it. Every single one of those would increase the sales price of those new homes, which is something that I'm pretty passionately against. And
the risk of, people when they buy from a builder, I've heard countless stories of like, oh, I thought I was doing this and I got that. And there's this rule. I mean, there's the idea of, I love this comment because we have a pod coming out with Damian Ailes, the new CEO of Realtor.com, and he's from Australia, and he was talking about how absolutely screwed up the system is over there compared to here. And he was giving us stories, and we're just like, holy shit! Like people don't understand how good we have it here, and why it's important to have somebody help represent you.
Australia is one of the use cases for the plaintiffs in these cases.
I know.
So, I mean,
so here's we have 2 questions before we got to wrap up. This is a big one, and Keith will wrap up at the end. He always does with his final question. But so this is more of I'm going to make a statement because Keith and I talk about this often, and then want to really get your thoughts. We feel like there is a lack of leadership in this industry right now. And I'm not, everyone's going to read in this, I'm not just referring to NAR. NAR has its problems. We are all aware of that. I'm not the person that's saying that NAR needs to go away. I think NAR needs to change. It needs to grow, and it needs to have some modification. But I'm also in the camp. They have a very powerful lobby that's extraordinarily important for our industry. You get rid of that, our industry is screwed.
Now,
Right.
I mean,
Now
we don't
more
have to
than
go down
ever.
that track.
Like more than ever.
Yeah.
So everybody's
People
like,
in the
"Oh,
comment
NAR, go away." I'm
sections
like,
who are
"You're an idiot."
pitchforking NAR.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
Like-
I'm the first person to throw, a snowball at somebody, but I'm also the first person to defend them and say, NAR's got a lot of problems,
Sure.
but y'all better hope NAR doesn't go away, because
No
we are educated
kidding.
enough to understand the bills that they actually squash that would literally not allow you to have a job. Now I'm going to get off that soapbox.
Being
for a
mad
second.
at the I don't know, the people who put the pipes in your house. Like, I don't see what you guys are doing. It's like, well, turn on the faucet.
Right. So that being said,
That was
I think it is fair to say that there is a lack of leadership happening in this business. It's a void. Keith, tell her about the presentation you did the other day that just blew my mind. Not
weeks ago.
our people, by the way, but like just in general.
A few weeks ago, I spoke at an industry event. There were probably, 150 real estate agents and a few loan officers in the room. And I said, okay, cool. Raise your hand if you've heard or know what's going on with the class action lawsuits and how it could pertain to residential real estate. Kept it as generic as humanly possible. 4 hands went up. I said, awesome. Oh, no, it gets worse. I said, awesome. Hey, you 4, I'm going to call on you when I finish this sentence to tell us just a quick summary of what's going on. All 4 hands went down.
No.
Literally no one in the room could articulate even high level what was going on.
Yeah.
That's a leadership void, period.
That's a leadership void. So Mike, our question is this before we wrap up. What needs to change? Like what needs to happen to start allowing our industry to be aware and be educated and understand tough conversations and move forward? Where does that begin and where does that end?
So, I mean, we're dealing with 1.5 million professionals here. When those who are actually, participating in the market, that
not
number
for long
gets much smaller. That's true.
Yeah.
I think that we are a reactive industry right now. And I think our leadership is used to that. I think we have all been sort of driven into a fear-based reactive mentality. And that needs to stop. I mean, our entire industry is built on communication. We're a sales-based industry. We are driven by communicating with each other, with our vendors, and with our consumers. And there has been, and I don't know if it's because so much is online and there's technology and there's so many sort of intermediaries that have happened, but we've lost the skill of working together. I come from a network right now that compared to NAR is much, much smaller, right? 130,000 agents. We brag about that. That's great. We're in 70 countries, but it's a much smaller microcosm. And it is a microcosm of some of the top independent brokerages in the world and some of the top agents. And even there, I have trouble communicating, as desperate as I am to get the message out. I will have put out 50 different educational pieces on this stuff, and people still, I probably, would have had a similar response even recently to this. So I think we are focused on reacting to the market. I think we are focused on reacting to situations. Now, all of a sudden, we've been dealing with these lawsuits for going on 4 years?
Yeah, everyone's
and
like, "Oh, it's going to take a long
now,
time to settle." I'm like, "It's been going on for 4 years, people."
No.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be from leadership and it sounds analog because it is, but people need to get back on the ground, stop overproducing communications, stop it, get out there. There need to be town hall meetings. There needs to be people going out and talking face to face with their constituents.
Can we also agree that there just needs to be an honest conversation and stop treating people like children? Like, I mean,
stop running everything through the freaking PR department.
Exactly. Like the PR, I sit here and like, this is something I do hope NAR is listening to this, because it's something besides all the other comments, be honest and transparent with people. They'll actually respect you more. Like,
Which is scary. I'm a lawyer. And James, you're absolutely right. But I feel for Katie. I feel for the team over there, because they are dealing with one of the most crucial litigation, legal situations right now. Well, really kind of a couple. When you are dealing with litigious situations, the lawyer in you, the lawyer in me says, process everything.
Right.
Mhm.
Just clam up, don't
Right.
talk, because that might be more. I mean, even just recently when NAR said, oh, actually zero, it's not 1 penny, it's 0, right? What happened? The plaintiff just gleefully, oh, admission of guilt. Woo-hoo-hoo. You can't, it's so hard to be transparent when you're dealing with this kind of thing, but we have to.
Yeah.
We have to. As an
Yeah.
industry, we have to talk or we're never going to get anywhere. We are frozen with fear right now.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I've spent a lot of time with Katie, and I have so much respect for her. I can only imagine what she's going through and preparing for. And at the same time, I also think that what NAR has to realize in all of this is that they're going to need the membership to bond with them and come around them, because Keith and I have been very vocal. We all believe this is going to end in settlement. Like,
yeah,
that's just where we think it's going to go. It has to. In order to get everybody else out of this, there has to be this global settlement. Another podcast, another time. But
yeah,
but I also think
I agree. I mean, there is going to be so much room for copycatting if we don't.
It's as soon as it happens, the pressure's going to show up, because believe me, if I get sued and everybody else gets sued, who do you think I'm calling to say settle the damn cases, right? So it's, but I also just, I just, there needs to be this genuine authenticity that's coming out.
Yeah.
I realize there's things you can't say because you don't want to cause.
But then say that. Like, here's what I can tell you. I can tell you these things.
But,
I can apologize for these things.
I hear you both. I hear you both. But like, and I feel like I'm just the guy taking the other side on this one.
Hulk.
Which, nope, doesn't bother me in the least. But like, honestly, NAR's doing what they're. Look, if I, as a leader in wherever I live, USA, am waiting on NAR to tell me how to run my brokerage on a day-to-day basis, I'm out of business. NAR is doing what they're supposed to do by fighting the cases, getting ready, hopefully, for a settlement, because we've talked about that. Like, and every state is different, right? Some have buyer broker agreements, some don't. Some have one, but it's never been used. Like,
absolutely.
Well, I'm just saying that's the conversation we should be having, Keith, to be clear. That's all I'm saying is
maybe,
that people,
but like, I've never waited for NAR, ever. NAR is a great political action committee that can go into courts and fight for me. Awesome. Keep doing that. The rest of the stuff you do, like, if you're listening respectfully, I don't care that much. I'm going to win in my local market, and I'm going to operate as a business leader. And you take care of the governmental stuff that I can't influence or impact, which is what they're doing. And like, I guess I agree with you. Yes. Could NAR do more? Of course. But if anyone in the industry, not named NAR, is hearing this, don't wait.
I'm not saying necessarily that they need to do more. I think they're doing a huge amount. What I'd like to see is them talking, like, talk a little, brag a little bit more. I mean, there's so many misconceptions right now. There's one of the, let's not get too deep in the comment sections, because zombie times three, I keep bringing up zombies, but oh my God. But there's so many misconceptions about NAR, what they do, what they don't do, their value. I want them to be shouting from the rooftops because we need them. And I don't know that the industry understands how much they are doing. There was one comment, and this is, I know we're getting over time here, but I saw one comment. Somebody said, hey, stop saying NAR is not doing anything. Do you have any idea of the lobbying even recently with, independent contractors, I think was one. And the other one was essential workers during COVID. And the response was, oh yeah, but those are easy.
Yeah.
I know we got to wrap the show, but I'll just leave this one comment on there. I think what it comes down to, Keith, you're not disagreeing with you, and I'm not referencing the local market. I'm just explaining, it goes to this comment you made, Jessica, about PR. Yeah. I would rather see a non-scripted video from the president of NAR that's not with music and everything else.
Sure, but when is the last time but NAR's never done that.
Well, that's the point at least I'm trying to make, is I want to see the president of NAR leave testifying in front of Congress and get on Twitter with a video that's like, just left Congress, we fought, this is what we're doing, Mitch McConnell fell asleep at the podium, it was awkward, like whatever it might be, but just like somehow starting to get more.
The world is going to say, go to Facebook Live right after your Senate hearing. None. Zero.
And it's a hard spot, but truly, I think,
I'm Pollyanna. I just want to see change because I believe in what they're doing.
I want to see more noise. I want
I
to see
hear
more
you.
face-to-face noise.
Again, I agree with what you both are saying. They can do more and they should be doing more. I just think the other side doesn't get mentioned as much as it should in the public discourse. All right, last question. We'll wrap on this.
Okay.
Given all we've talked about, if you were a real estate agent or a broker today, what's the one thing? Can't be three, can't be two. One thing you would do, change, or add to your business today to prepare you for the next 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so I'm going to come back at you because I need you to. If I'm a broker, it's one thing, and if I'm an agent, it's another thing.
Okay, fair.
Two.
Go. Broker, then agent. Go.
Okay, so if I'm a broker, first of all, I am working with my advocacy ties, state, local, national association, to ensure that no matter what happens, we have in place a mortgage product that allows for buyer compensation to be wrapped into it. That hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
And speaking of making noise, we need that. So brokers, tap into those advocacy channels that you have and make noise about that, because consumers need brokers. They need buyer representation. We are facing an ecosystem where buyers and our consumers are put at great disadvantage, and we could be losing some real good agents.
It's a good one.
Mix. Okay. So for agents, educate yourselves on how to operate in this new environment. Get your training. Take advantage of every training opportunity that you have. Leading RE members, we've got stuff. Everybody who belongs to the National Association of Realtors, there is incredible training material there too.
What I hear you saying is listen to the Real Estate Insiders podcast. That's what I heard you say.
And listen to real estate. Listen to James and Keith every week.
Yes.
Ultimately, that is the final.
By the way, we'll
Subscribe.
wrap. Thank you for that. By the way, Jessica, I'll give you that 20 that I said I promised you later. So for the promotion,
I want a dirty martini. That's
there you go.
Done.
So there's a really great document that we'll link up to in our show that NER came out with. It's the 179 things an agent does on the buy side. For those of you who haven't seen it, really encourage you to read it. Take that thing, print it, digitize it. I don't care what you do, but take that with your meetings with buyers to help them understand the work involved. Jessica, thank you for being here. I love
you were awesome.
You were great. It's awesome. I know our listeners and viewers will appreciate it. We love hearing these updates and the transparency, and we look forward to having you back on the show in the near future. So
I would love to be back. Thanks, you guys. This was a ton of fun, and I love your podcast. Everybody who's listening, thanks for being with us through the show.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
It's our job to say out loud what everybody's only thinking to themselves. It's your job to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode.